Hey everyone, this is That Guy in Hutch, Jason Probst, and you're listening to That Podcast in Hutch. So today in the studio, I have with me my intern, is what I tell people. I did air quotes around that because I don't know if what the official language is around an intern or whether I provided an adequate job description for her. But I met Hailee in the Capitol last year. She was there with JAG-K students, and we connected there and we talked, and then I came and spoke to her class a little bit. And anyway, we've talked a couple of times after that, and then sometime over this summer, I talked to her about interning with me and helping me out with the campaign. And even though I think sometimes it's been a little bit uncomfortable for her, she's gone out walking with me, knocking doors. And I think it's been a fun experience. It has been for me. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about JAG-K, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with young people these days. So Hailee, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
So tell me a little bit about JAG-K. A lot of people probably don't know much about it if they haven't had some contact with it.
Yeah, so JAG-K stands for Jobs for American Graduates Kansas, and it's a nationwide association where we get prepared for life outside of high school. We do mock job interviews, fill out fake taxes. We learn how to file a mortgage, what a mortgage is. We learn about all sorts of different things that you wouldn't necessarily learn in a normal high school class. And we do certain conferences called the LDC, which stands for the Leadership Development Conference, and then the CDC, which is the Career Development Conference, where we get to compete with JAG-K students in our region. There's 4 regions all over Kansas, and then if you pass that, you can go to state. And then if you pass through state, you get to go to nationals, which is in a different state each year. So it's just kind of a way to get us prepared and expand over some difficult horizons that some students have. And it's just overall a very great career association. And
you've really kind of gotten yourself involved in this because you're not just in JAG-K, you're an officer. And you've really been involved in the leadership with JAG-K, right?
Yeah, so I've been in JAG-K for 4 years now, and my titles for the Career Association are I'm Region 4 President, so I'm in control of a whole region which I believe has over 30 schools and, over 1,000 students. And then I am also the state secretary, so I have to plan a lot of things for the state, and we go over, rules that we want to include and just different aspects about JAG.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into JAG. I mean, or how does somebody get into JAG? I think from the conversations I had earlier this year, it could actually start in middle school, right?
Yes.
So how does generally somebody get involved in the JAG program, and then how and why did you get involved?
So I actually got involved by getting pulled out of one of my classes in middle school, and they said, hey, we're bringing in this class. It's called JAG. And I thought it was really interesting, and so I joined back in, I believe, 8th grade. And ever since then, I just kind of followed through with it. But in all honesty, if you go to any kind of school and you go and talk to your counselors or the person who does your scheduling, if your school does have a JAG-K program, you can generally join it that way by just saying that you want in. That wasn't the case for the middle schoolers because we had no clue what it was. Mm-hmm. I believe the starting class was about 12 students for the middle school.
Oh, wow.
And now it's evolved, and at the high school, we have over 50 JAG students, I believe.
Oh, wow. So one of the things about JAG, though, is that it kind of works with you on like real life skills, right? You talked about understanding a mortgage, and can you talk a little bit about kind of how important that's been to you? I mean, do you feel because of that you're almost 18? And you wrote a big note on my wall that reminds me that you turned 18 in 8 days, and that it's your birthday, and this is a very important day.
It is.
Okay. So do you feel like this has helped you kind of be a little better prepared for adult life than you might have been otherwise?
I mean, I met you through JAG, didn't I?
That's true. That's true. And that's gonna pay huge dividends. I definitely.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I've filled your evenings and weekends with all this exciting and fun activity, right?
Walking is not fun, but it has helped me a lot. I didn't realize how important some things that JAG had taught me were going to be so important. We did budgeting with like our future careers and where you would want to live. And then we've also looked through if, any of my classmates had a bank account, which most do in high school. Our career specialist had us go through there and pick out every payment we've made and realize how much of our money we're actually spending, and then come up with a budget for that. And then we've also, we learned the different ways that you should dress for job interviews depending on the job, and, how professional it is, or how like kind of business casual it is, and how to dress for those, and kind of how you should, send a cover letter with your resume, or send a follow-up letter after applying or after your interview, and just different aspects to help you really get a job and make yourself noticeable. And also through JAG, I did get another internship earlier this summer that I feel also kind of helped guide me with my future. And
in the program, you get to experience a lot of career opportunities too. I know you took a trip to McConnell recently. I think that was through JAG.
Yep.
So it does provide a lot, in addition to like some of these like real functional, here's what you're going to need to know in adult life. It kind of exposes you to some other things that you might do, right?
Yeah. So we also bring in people from different colleges all of the time as guest speakers. They tell us about their college and what classes are offered there, how long you'd have to be there. We've brought in different people from over the community to come and talk to us about their business or what they do. We also job shadow every once in a while with like jobs that we think we'd be interested in, and just kind of follow them around for a day or a few hours, just depending on how busy your schedule is.
So if somebody, there's a parent out there listening and they're interested in getting their kids involved with this, is it just sort of thing they can maybe talk to their the school counselor or somebody in the building about, like a teacher or somebody? Yeah.
So if you're interested, talk to the counselors, because they'll probably know more about it and getting the student involved. But it's definitely a commitment with all the trips that we take. If you do want to go, you do need to make sure that your grades are up and that you're not failing any classes, or else you won't be able to go on these trips. And just kind of paying attention is really important, because it's a lot of things that you don't think you need to know, but you actually do. And I think most students should be in JAG, because it's helped so much with just my future and being able to know what I want to do.
Do you think that, I was trying to think of how to say this. Do you think that the skills that you've learned in JAG, you basically said everybody should take that because it would help for that. But do you think that without JAG and without the skills you learn in there, you're about to turn 18 pretty soon, you might be going out on your own. Would you be as prepared for that?
Definitely not.
Yeah. And do you feel a little more confident that you can manage like a house and rent and a budget and all those things. I'm curious to see if you learned how much money you were wasting and how you were wasting it when you looked at your
It was all
expenses.
Chick-fil-A. It was all Chick-fil-A. Every like few little snippets of money, it was mostly Chick-fil-A. But yeah, it helped me a lot. I'm a lot more confident in turning 18, especially with tax season, because now I know how to do that. It's not just going to hit me like a truck.
Because there are a lot of things that I think when you've been an adult for a while, you forget that you've done these things for years, but you forget like the first time you have to do them. Some simple things like doing taxes, renewing your insurance, getting your tags renewed, redoing your driver's license. Those are all things that require some effort and knowledge and understanding. But if you haven't done them, you sometimes don't even know where to look, right?
Yeah. And like insurance is also a huge thing. It's like making sure you have insurance. We've talked about that, especially car insurance.
Yeah, right.
Can't drive without that. But we talk about all different kinds of life skills, and it's pretty awesome.
Well, one other thing I wanted to kind of transition the conversation to, talking about challenges and things that high school students face. You're 17, almost 18. You're a senior in high school. You'll graduate this year. But I'm curious if you can maybe help me and help listeners kind of bridge a generation gap here. You hear all this talk about kids these days or whatever, and I think that happens every generation. People certainly had views about my generation when we were young. We were all wearing flannel shirts and we were slackers and we were never going to do anything worthwhile. I do still wear flannel shirts. This is absolutely true. But, I did go get a job eventually. But I'm curious about, it's now 2022. You're of the generation that's about to leave high school and enter adult life. Talk to me about what some of the big issues are that are facing kids your age in this day.
Definitely a lot of it would be mental health, because I know a lot of kids my age do struggle with a lot of mental health. And then another big thing is how social media affects our mental health, because it's kind of something that's shoved in our faces ever since we were younger. We just kind of grew up around technology and social media, especially as we got older. And there are always these ideal looks or ideal beauty standards that are just kind of pushed upon us, not even, by force. It's constantly seen everywhere. Like the people who become famous are very skinny, very slim. And so that projects a lot. And then seeing people do all these things you wish you could do, or
like they're out living their best life, or they've got money to go the places they want to go, right? That sort of thing?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of that. It all just kind of piles up. And, being a teenager, and that if you aren't busy 24/7, you're generally on your phone. And you're either on TikTok, you're on Snapchat, you're on Instagram, and all you see are these influencers and their perfect lives, with air quotes. But you never really get to see what's behind the screen, behind the editing. And not a lot of people know that social media is fake. A lot of it is.
So even though you know that, you know that, cognitively you know that, but do you still kind of internalize that ideas?
Yeah, I do a lot. And it does take a toll, but sometimes you just gotta kind of push it away for a little bit. I've been trying to stay off of my phone. It's not working, but I'm trying. So that I can work on my mental health more, because especially with school, I've hit a patch of senioritis where I don't always want to be at school. I'm just kind of like, I'm done this year anyways. So what's the point? And then that taking a toll on my grades. So then having to pick those back up because I do graduate early.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be done in February instead of May. But making sure that like I have all my grades up and I have all my work done before really anything else, I feel is where a lot of kids my age can struggle with that too. Just making sure that all their schoolwork is done as well.
So it's I want to make sure I understand. It seems like on one hand, you have to, well, on one hand, social media has been a part of your life forever, basically. I mean, for someone your age, it's been around since you were born. And so from the time you were able to interact with the world, social media has been a part of that. And on the other hand, you recognize what it takes to maybe diminish the influence of social media, but also knowing that takes some self-discipline, right? You have to have that ability to say, I'm not going to participate in this now until I do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. And that's been something I've been trying to do a lot more recently since I did let a lot of my grades fall and I realized getting in trouble is not very fun.
No, not at all.
So it's definitely something I've been working on, making sure I try and stay off my phone at school unless I have all my work done. And then just kind of trying study this weekend because we do have this 4-day weekend, which I'm very thankful for. Get outside, read a book because I did get that new Long Live the Pumpkin King book about The Nightmare Before Christmas. So I've been reading that. And then just kind of getting back out into, nature like I did when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, aside from social media, I know we talk a lot, and I think there's a lot of entry points in teen life for mental health concerns. But so what is the conversation with your friends? I mean, what sort of, aside from social media, what sort of stressors are out there that create some of these mental health concerns or issues in your age group?
So I do know some of my friends who, don't have very good home lives, or some friends who moved out really early and got emancipated. And just kind of having to know that you have to go to work and work long hours to be able to support yourself while still in high school. A lot of kids take on work so that they can move out at 18, or pretty much just kind of home life is a big part of it, or overworking themselves, because I know a lot of kids do that, and then to kind of block out, how they're feeling, or they use work to cope.
But what are some of the other, because I think we do hear this a lot about mental health, and mental health is a bigger concern maybe with younger people than it has been before. I think it's always been some concern for young people because your brains are developing, you're not quite able to process all your emotions completely. But what other things are kind of putting pressure, I guess, on people in your age group?
I guess it could kind of be a lot of us matured quicker than most kids do, or than we probably should have. Had to try and act like an adult when you're a child, or be the bigger person. Like when you're a kid, you're going to be a kid. Also, just a lot of stress if kids go straight into working when they're 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to balance that, especially balancing your work life, your school life, your home life, if you have a relationship, your relationship, friendships, just trying to balance it all out. And then some days you'll go to school and then you'll go to work. It's pretty much like a 12-hour day.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really stressful to not kind of have time for yourself or just having that break between school and work. Because you only go to work or school 5 days a week, but then some kids are working over the weekend. So they're pretty much, quote unquote, working 7 days a week constantly, which can get to be a bit much.
Well, yeah, if you're working 7 days a week.
Yeah, pretty
or you're
much.
active with
like
something.
School
Yeah.
and...
So does anybody talk to you about how to like manage time? I mean, we talked a little bit in JAG-K. I mean, it seems like maybe you learned some of that there. But generally speaking, is there kind of like a structure to say to people your age, like, hey, it's really important to like take some breaks. It's really important to do some things that make life feel rewarding and fulfilling, and you're just not grinding away all the time.
You can try. It doesn't always work. I know I struggled a lot balancing work, school, my relationship, my friendship, and balancing all of that and then still having time for who's Hailee?
Yeah.
How's she doing? And there just wasn't a lot of time for that. So I don't really try and give advice because I couldn't even take it myself. So I feel like the best thing for me that really has helped was I quit my job. And that has helped a lot with being able to balance. Yeah. And just having more time for myself and to kind of work on myself and figure out who am I?
Yeah. Which is what you're supposed to be doing at this age, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So if you're just working and going to school, whatever, somewhere in there you have the opportunity to learn about who you are, but some of it requires a little bit of intention, I think. Tell me, I'm a little curious here, and then we'll move on to maybe some lighter topics. In your age group, when they look forward in the world, what do they see? Are they hopeful? Are they pessimistic? Are they excited about the future? Do they see it with dread? What does your age group see? And I know it's very general, and there are individuals, and I don't want to paint everybody with a broad brush, but I do think in general terms, at least in your experience, what do people your age see? What do they worry about? What do they see going forward?
It's generally pretty negative because we do have, the LGBTQIA community and that being more normalized. Being trans, we have all the surgeries and the hormones and all of that stuff. And then we also have people who are non-binary, and people don't accept that you're either one or you're the other. And just a lot of that is seen very negatively. So there's that, and then there's also the whole Roe v. Wade getting overturned, and a lot of women reacting negatively to that, especially kids or people in my generation, not very happy because we're about to turn 18, or we are just turned 18, and we're already having our rights stripped away. Mm-hmm. Like, it makes women more fearful to bring children into this world because in that off chance that something does happen, what are we to do? If we don't even have control over our own bodies, why should we bring a child into this world when they're not going to have those rights either? So that's just how I've heard from a lot of my female friends and, have seen on social media, too, of people speaking out about how they don't want to have children because of it, or they're scared. And then it's generally pretty negative because you don't really see much moving forward. It all just kind of seems like we're taking a step back.
So in some of these areas, you look and you say the world isn't as free or as not as free or not as open as it would have been before. And so you're entering, I'm going to make sure I understand that. So the view being that you're entering adulthood at a time when kind of the world is constricting a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I like that the LGBTQ community is getting more recognition, but also with the Roe v. Wade getting overturned, how long till their rights are overturned as well? Because if we just keep, it seems like just keep going back, like what all is going to be taken away?
Now, it seems that, so is there a lot of talk about policy, like those sort of policies and politics and things like that in your age group?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of discussion about that. Is like right now you're about to turn 18. Is in that age group, is there talk about how you can participate in the system? And because historically, one of the criticisms of young adults is that they may care about things, they may have points of view that they're very passionate about, but they historically don't participate in the system very well.
Yeah, there's talk about it, but also not a lot of people research enough or, don't know like how they can register if, they were going to vote in November. They don't know how to register, if they can register, and aspects like that. But other than that, there are a few kids I know that are just kind of like, I just won't vote then.
If they don't know how to navigate these systems, they just will say, I'm going to sit on sidelines.
That, or if they just don't want any involvement because of, being blamed or whatnot for voting for certain people.
Like they might do it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or vote for the wrong person and then end up with bad results, right?
Yeah.
I hear that a lot, actually. The people that aren't familiar and don't vote all the time, they have a fear that they're going to do it wrong and they're going to vote for the wrong people, and then it's going to be their fault when everything goes badly. Is that a feeling?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Just doing it wrong, you get the wrong person in office, and things go downhill from there. So a lot of kids don't want that on their shoulders,
Yeah.
as you could say.
Does it feel like a responsibility or another part of like, oh, this is another obligation I have to do?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of other things. I'm interested in sort of trends or things. So tell me, like, let's run through a couple of things, like music. What are you listening to right now?
Right now, I'm listening to a little bit of everything, primarily 80s and 90s, just because they have really good music.
Like pop, rock, both?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Both from the 80s and 90s. It's what I was raised on. And
is that common, or are you an outlier?
There's actually a lot of people that listen to the 80s and 90s, especially at like our dances, like homecoming, prom. A lot of early 2000s and 80s and 90s are played.
Okay.
So it's kind of nice because there are songs generally everybody knows. But if we're talking about like today's music, it's generally a lot of rap or like pop music.
Okay. What about like movies, TV, streaming?
So currently, I just started rewatching American Horror Story.
Okay.
And then I've been obsessed with for a long time rewatching Legally Blonde till I can't stand it anymore. That and Mean Girls.
Oh, Mean Girls. So
Yeah.
that's like a early 2000s movie, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then anything Tim Burton, especially with it getting closer to Halloween. I love been watching my Tim Burton movies, or starting all the way from Annabelle's creation through Insidious and The Conjuring.
Mm-hmm.
I will watch those all October, all November.
So this is all like horror movie month, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a favorite series of horror movies?
I love Insidious and The Conjuring ones the most, but I also really like the It series by Stephen King.
Yeah. Did you read the book?
No,
Or
I
you just watched the
didn't. I just
series?
watched
Okay.
the movies.
Okay. The book is huge, but it's very, very good. And I know some people that have read that book several times. They love it so much. They just could go back through it over and over again. Clothing.
Oh, Lord. So I guess one of the biggest trends,
Streaks of purple hair.
they're not streaks. It's an undercolor. So, I mean, more like vivid colors in your hair, I guess, is a trend right now. But also a lot of girls wearing like lingerie as tops. Or I know there are girls who show up at the high school and just bras and like shorts or bras and jeans, and they put a flannel over it like it's a whole outfit.
And that is that a TikTok thing?
It's an everywhere thing. At least like from what I know. The lingerie thing is kind of TikTok-y, just getting like tops that aren't as see-through and then wearing them as shirts. And then crop tops.
What is your favorite? We talked about this, and you're, notwithstanding that you're trying to maybe limit some social media, but what is your preferred social media?
TikTok.
And why is that? That's like that's the growing platform right now.
Yeah.
So what is so appealing about TikTok?
It's just you get to see so many different personalities, and which I think is cool because there are some, plus-sized girls who are getting more attention, and it's good to see that body confidence. And then also there are just people on there who make me laugh, or they tell stories, and you're just like, oh my God, that can happen? Or just the random things that you can find on TikTok or the random things that will pop up across your For You page.
Mm-hmm. Because there's an algorithm that predicts what you would like and sends it to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever worry about that?
Yeah, there are some things that like I'd have had conversations with my friends earlier in the day, and they'll see a TikTok that's like, oh, well, this tarot card is predicting this for you. Uh-huh. And it'll be really close to the thing I talked to my friends earlier about. I'm just like, that's creepy. And then I'll send it to them and be like, weren't we just talking about this? And then, that pops up more and more.
So one of the things I always, and not just with your age group, in general, because these algorithms and all the social media are effective in delivering content that you would probably want, but they're also bad in that they're kind of shutting out an entire world that you might not know about otherwise. Do you worry about that at all? Do you worry that you're just being exposed through the algorithm to a fairly narrow slice of life?
Yeah, and I kind of realized that more with how much like Hurricane Ian was being posted on social media, but you saw people who are like, okay, we made it out alive. Like, I'm happy that you're good and your family is okay, but you didn't really see much about how bad it got and how the poorer communities, especially in like Puerto Rico, got hit and there were houses taken out, or how bad their economy is going to be just from that one hurricane. You don't really see the terrible effects, especially on social media. It's mostly like here's how we prep for a hurricane, and that's going on for like a day and a half of you seeing it, and then it's back to normal. And you don't really see much about it anymore until you go and search.
So, there's there's that kind of goes back to the thing about the perfect life, right? Like the algorithm feeds and people only put on social media what they need. And in that case, there's a very real reason why you're probably not seeing some of that other content. People are probably, if they're in a desperate situation, are probably not producing content. And they may not even be able to, they may be without electricity or without the resources, and certainly probably producing content is the last thing on their mind, right?
Yeah. And it's just people, even people who live there. I've seen some people who don't even live there posting links, and the people who say that they're fine, like, don't say any ways that you can help. And that's kind of what most people are looking for right now is reliable sources to help, especially the part of Florida that really got hit and Puerto Rico and any other place that was greatly affected. And you don't really see many links or just really anything about it now that it's over.
So you're not seeing ways to like donate or help or do
Nada.
anything like that right now. And then does that news cycle, so to speak, move past that pretty quickly? And now you're probably this many days out, your algorithm is probably on to whatever's next, right?
Yeah. So with it, you'll see it for like a day or two when it's really big and it's what's being talked about the most. And then after like those 2 days, you'll maybe see one post and then you'll scroll past and then you won't see another one.
Mm-hmm. And it just moves on to whatever the next trend is.
Yep.
Oh, speaking of trends, what is your favorite TikTok dance?
I honestly don't know.
You have some though, right?
I have some. I
Because
just
we
can't.
talked about this.
Yeah, I really think you should do a TikTok dance.
Oh, I think that's not going to happen.
I think it should happen.
Also, making a TikTok video seems exhausting.
You need to.
I know. You've said that a number of times.
Get your platform out there.
I know. But I can't do the dances, and they change all the time. I can't keep up with that.
I will help you. I will be your TikTok manager.
Oh, nice.
I'm not taking the spot away from your social media manager. I will just be the TikTok manager.
TikTok. Tell me one thing that you either wished people my age or older knew and understood about people your age, or something that you think is a complete misconception about people your age.
We're not all crazy. We're not all, bad and trying to kill you or whatever. And then also, just because you say you have an eating disorder doesn't mean you're going to be skinny. And that I feel like that's a huge one is people will talk about it and they'll be like, you don't have an eating disorder, you're not skinny. Which is back on like the darker side, but it's something that it really isn't talked about, is how you can have an eating disorder and not be the skinniest person in the world. You're not just skins and bones. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that isn't talked about enough because, there's anorexia, but there's also bulimia and binge eating and all of those other eating disorders that just don't get talked about a lot.
Is this something that is a issue in a conversation in your circles?
Yeah, kind of. A lot of people don't really talk about it because they're scared. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be judged. And it's frowned upon to say you have one and then not be skin and bones.
So the people who might have an eating disorder but don't present very thin and frail like we traditionally think, they then have they're reluctant to share that. They don't want to talk about that because they don't outwardly look like they have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And so then they continue, I guess then in that case, they still have the disorder, but they're not actually getting treatment for it because they're not able to talk to anyone about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said you're not all crazy, and do you feel like people, like older people, have the idea that younger people are like thinking about how to harm them all the time?
I definitely see sometimes that they think that we are out to get them, and we're not. Like with our crazy ideas or our colorful hair, that we're just some sort of witches from Salem or something, and we're really not. And I feel like that's a misconception, I guess.
Yeah. That there's you think there's an unhealthy fear among some people that just in general your generation is looking to just wreck them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what do you want? If you're not looking to knock off everyone older than you, what is it you're after?
To be happy, just be ourselves is definitely something that I feel like my generation strives for. Like, I know a lot of people, especially my age, as my hair is pretty dark and purple, we use like hair dye to express ourselves, tons of makeup to express ourselves, and just kind of be artistic. Mm-hmm. And then, so you see some people who sell their art. I have a friend who just went to K-State, I believe, and is an art major, and she's really good, but her art can be seen as darker sometimes. Mm-hmm. Or some of us aren't out to make the largest amount of money that we can make. We know we want to do what we love and just kind of be able to be ourselves in our profession.
And be able to pursue those interests, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hailee, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being so frank and honest with me and sharing your insights. And I hope that you'll continue working with me even after the election's over.
We'll see about that.
Take care.
You too.
I'd like to thank a few of the people who've helped make That Podcast in Hutch possible. My son Mitchell Probst wrote and recorded the music for the show. Jenny Brigette put together some great graphics and promotional art. And Chris Acker helps overcome my mistakes to produce a great sounding product every episode. That Podcast in Hutch is made possible through a collaboration between the Hutchison Arts and Culture Collective and Salt City Sound. They're working to bring resources and infrastructure to support art, music, and storytelling in our community. If you have an idea for your own podcast, reach out to them at podcasts@saltcitysound.net. If you enjoy That Podcast in Hutch, be sure to subscribe and share it with all your friends. You can also help support this production by subscribing to thatguyinhutch.substack.com or by emailing me at thatguyinhutch@gmail.com to learn about sponsorship opportunities. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next week.
A Salt City Sound production.